Fort Smith, Arkansas, a city shaped by the river and the quiet. In January 1958, the town had just exhaled the last breath of the holidays. Snow still clung to the rooftops, storefronts flickered with leftover lights, and the rhythm of small-town life resumed with a familiar kind of stillness. But beneath the surface, trouble had been building. Mental illness in that era was a taboo subject. Facilities were overburdened, diagnoses were poorly understood, families were left to make agonizing decisions with little support. It was in that world that 28-year-old Bobby Joe Burns lived, a man who was already diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, struggling with drug addiction, and barely holding on to the edges of reality. After being institutionalized for a second time, Bobby Joe's doctors recommended further psychiatric care, but his mother, Edna Burns, stepped in. She requested his release. She believed he could recover at home. She believed, like many mothers do, that love could fix what the world had failed to heal. But she was deadly wrong. On the morning of Monday, January 27, 1958, the janitor at Immaculate Conception Church at the corner of North 13th Street and Garrison Avenue made a horrific discovery. Inside the vestibule, neatly placed, wrapped in a white sheet, was the severed head of Edna Burns. Not hidden, not discarded, presented, as if it were an offering. When police found Bobby Joe, he wasn't running. He was sitting alone in Frozen Farm, field near the Oklahoma border. No coat, no attempt to flee. He was quiet and he was calm. He told authorities his task was complete, that he'd received consent, that he had performed something very sacred. What followed was one of the most disturbing interviews in Arkansas criminal history. Bobby Joe admitted to drugging his mother, mutilating her, removing her tongue, part of her nose, and one eye, then decapitating her. He claimed he was fulfilling an ancient Aztec ritual. He believed that human anatomy and geography were spiritually linked, that body, land, and soul were part of a divine structure. Some versions of the tale even suggested that after decapitation, Bobby Joe plugged a radio into her neck. It wasn't madness in the chaotic sense. It was structured and deliberate. A fractured logic wrapped in religious imagery and ritual sacrifice. Bobby Joe referenced Revelation 20:9-11 when explaining his actions. A vision of apocalyptic judgment, divine wrath, and fire from heaven.
They invaded the breadth of the earth and surrounded the camp of the holy ones and the beloved city. But fire came down from heaven and consumed them. The devil who had led them astray was thrown into the pool of fire and sulfur, where the beast and the false prophet were. There they will be tormented day and night forever and ever. Next I saw a large white throne and the one who was sitting on it. The earth and the sky fled from his presence, and there was no place for them.
To Bobby Joe, this wasn't a crime. It was a calling, a symbolic act to purge something evil, to usher in judgment. After his arrest, Circuit Judge Paul Wolf ordered a 30-day psychiatric evaluation. The results confirmed what some already knew: paranoid schizophrenia, religious delusions, and total disconnect from reality. Bobby Joe then requested to be executed. Then weeks later, he asked for release, and neither of these were granted. Instead, he remained in the state mental hospital, not as a prisoner, but as a patient who could never safely return. Though no official death record is publicly available that I could find, it's widely believed that Bobby Joe Burns died sometime in the 1980s, quietly, inside the same institution that once tried to contain him. He had no funeral, he has no headstone, he only has whispers and echoes. This case left behind far more than shock. It raised questions that still linger today. What responsibility does a family bear in choosing to bring someone home from care? What were the warning signs the systems missed or ignored? And how do religious delusions shape violent acts, and how should we understand them? And perhaps for me, the hardest question of all, can love save someone who has slipped completely into delusion? Or does that belief, however well-intended, endanger everyone involved? I'd really like your answers to these questions. If you would like to leave a comment, I'd love to know how you feel about these. And for more information on this case, you can visit the Fort Smith Historical Society. Please tune in next time for Echoes of Evidence for another chilling episode. Every silence has a sound, and every crime leaves an echo. Thank you.